Hi, everybody. This is Jim Graham with A to Z Sales. Today, I have with me David Blake from A to Z Sales and Jake Alfrey from A to Z Sales. And today, we want to talk to you about introducing the new General Filters steam humidifier for 2020. The first thing that General has changed is they did change their logo. And what they wanted to do is very similar to what they're doing with the style of the steam humidifier is that they've lightened it up, they've made it a little more stylistic, and they've made it kind of sleek and breezy. You can see that the swoosh of air goes through the General Air, which is what General Air does. You know, speaking to that General Air swoosh, I would like to add that General Filters has been in humidification since the 1950s. And if there's one thing that they do well, it's humidification. So when General decided that they needed to go to their line and say, hey, you know, we need to be the leaders in humidification, we looked at the bypass humidifiers, and we looked at our steam humidifier. And how they went about this is they followed the Lewis Sullivan adage of form follows function. And how they got to function is that they went from the bottom to the top. That meaning that they didn't start with the executive level and come down. They started with the contractor and with the engineers and asked them what would be the things that you would see in this humidifier that you would like. So they did a lot of listening before they even went into designing. And then once they did the listening and went to designing, they went into manufacturing, and this is what we're going to talk about, the new steam humidifier, the result of all that listening. So what they did was, the first thing that they decided that they needed to do is their steam humidifier always had the best performance. It always delivered the steam humidifier that you needed in your home. What they wanted to do was eliminate some of the complexity. They had some items that we'll talk about that we've changed that's going to take a good 25 minutes out of the installation of this humidifier. But at the same time, maintaining the sophistication of the style and look, and also the unique control board that we have. Here on this slide, you're going to see some of that sleek, airy design that we talked about. This is unique to all steam humidifiers. It's just not a metal box. It's very stylistic. A lot of times, boilers and steam humidification in Europe, they actually install these in the living space, in the kitchen. This is something that you literally could put in the kitchen if you wanted to. It looks like an appliance. One thing that I want to mention on that slide before it flipped, but on our old unit, on the top of the unit, there was room for a room blower. That's been taken out. So that unit is actually 3 inches smaller in length than it was before. So this slide is the control panel. And David, would you want to speak to the control panel and how important this control panel is compared to our competitors?
Yes, thank you. what they did here was, I say sophisticated, but I say easy as well. And this is pointed. If it's numbered, it tells you exactly what the problem is or what you have to do to this unit, while others used a flash code. And if you've ever seen boards and furnaces, they work on flashes like a Morse code. They could be quarter, quarter, half, full, and you have to diagnose that, add them all together, and then go to your furnace door or manual, and you have to read what it is. So the difference for this to be pointed, know exactly what you need to do and what it's telling you versus a flash code is night and day. It's like it's moving up in history to high sophistication. So I love it. I love it. It's going to make contractors' life very easy and homeowners.
Thank you, David. It's, yeah, it is state-of-the-art control board, no question about it. The icons are easy to read. It gives you the percentages right in the icon. It's just a wonderful tool. So here, we're going to introduce to you that we've made some changes in that the humidifier now, the steam humidifier now can be 110 or 220 in one unit. How that's achieved is we have a switch that's underneath the control box, and all you have to do is switch it to 110 or 220. We also have one cylinder now versus a normal cylinder and a low conductivity cylinder. Now there's just one cylinder in the unit. So that's here we're getting rid of 5 steam humidifiers and putting them really all into one. And we're getting rid of one cylinder. Now one cylinder fits all. This unit also will produce up to 28 gallons per day, which is quite a bit of humidity. David, why don't you speak to this slide? This is one of the more important, changes that they made. Before you start, I will say this: the #1 tech call to the company was on the installation of this cylinder, and this has been a huge change to be able to eliminate that. So go ahead, David.
Correct. And when I was at ASHRAE, I saw this unit, and I got to talk to some of the people and the VP of General, and this was an issue. And what happened was the wires before had to be torqued down, and they could be jarred in installation, they could be jarred in shipping, they could be not even torqued down properly, and it became a nuisance call. And so the contractor, of course, would get frustrated. He calls tech support, and what came down to was just a matter of torquing that connection tightly and properly. But now we're just like on any engine that we have a spark plug type connector that clicks down onto the unit, so you know you've made a good connection. And to me, this was a great added feature that will take so many little issues that got under people's skin before, and they're gone. So I kudos to General Aire for making this change and streamlining it for everybody.
Yeah, David, and another issue where this comes up, where it really helps it is, you know, when you install this unit, you have one installer that is, our old unit needed to have a torque wrench, and you had to torque it down to a specific amount of torque. And that installer does that and puts it in, and everything's going great. And then, you know, a year, 2 years later, a new tech comes in, doesn't have a wrench, and just goes ahead and takes them off and then puts them back on and doesn't really torque it to what it needed to be. So now that's been eliminated. Anybody, you know, the first guy that puts it in, just puts it in with the click, he's connected. The second guy comes in, he's a completely new guy, He just puts it in with a click. Also, there are other items like O-rings and washers that you would have to install with this, and now they're just attached to the cylinder. One of the other things that you see on the bottom of the screen, it says single screw and latch for the cover release. And this has been another important change for the ease of maintenance. The old humidifier had 4 screw holes in each corner of the cover, and they were recessed a good 3/4 of an inch. So it took an extra long screwdriver to get those out, and you had to have one. If you had just a regular screwdriver, it was a little harder to take that cover off. Now what they've done is there's 1 screw at the bottom and just a latch at the top. And you just take the screw out with a regular screwdriver and just take the cover off. So it's super easy. This slide is showing one of the changes that we've made with the unit for the, you'll see metal mounting straps with aligned keyholes so that you're able to line the humidifier up between studs really easy and have your holes right there. Also, this is a mention to those O-rings and gaskets and washers. They just are part of the cylinder at this point. So David, why don't you talk to us about the new GFX4 humidistat? I know that you have you have the GFX3 in your house, right?
That is correct. And honestly, it works great. But I did have to add a current sensing relay. And when you do that, the blower cabinet, you're finding the common wire. You have to loop it around there. You have to wire, take those wires and run it through your furnace. Oftentimes there's not a spot, so you have to pop a hole. So to wire this unit right to your controls on your furnace just makes life so much easier. You took out a component that could fail, and it just streamlines your time again. It's just, again, this is all for contractors to make their life easier, and time is money, so it's faster. And before I leave on this, there's one other thing I'd like to say is, you know, when you talk about 6 SKUs going into one, my life was a wholesaler. And to know that you can have minimal units, per se, on a shelf where people aren't going to make a mistake. It's easy for a counter person to sell the unit. It's easy for the outside salesman. But more importantly, it's very easy for the warehouse worker to pull that unit and put it on a truck or put it in a guy's van without making mistakes. So that, to me, is just one significant piece of the puzzle that makes this really easy. Less SKUs just makes it so much easier for a wholesaler to stock.
Thanks, David. Thanks for going over that. So in wrapping up, I just wanted to maybe go over some of the highlights of this change. The steam humidifier now is going to be 1 unit for the 110 or 220. It's going to have 1 cylinder. The click-in connectors helps for not only speed of installation, but also safety, because if those things weren't torqued right, what happens is it gets hot and then the wires melt. So now that's been eliminated. So the callbacks are going to be eliminated if someone didn't torque these right. Now there is no torquing, you just snap it in. We have the elimination of units, simplified mountings, everything's attached to the cylinder, and it should take, one other thing that we need to mention too, is that with this control, we're going to be able to wire to the furnace now, which we couldn't before. So all of these lead to about 25 minutes less in the installation and easier to maintenance. So it's the best performing steam humidifier in the market with the best control system and the most sophisticated one for easy operation. So I'd like to thank you for watching this, and also look for this steam humidifier to come out in July of 2020. And thank you very much. And David and Jake, thanks so much for helping out with this.